I'm just going to let Jo introduce herself and take the lead on this.
Thanks, Karen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jo Stewart-Rattray, and as you can tell, I'm not from round here. I've flown from Australia especially for this event with BC Aware. I think it's a great campaign, and I thank, I thank the Vancouver chapter for inviting me, and certainly for having this session. I'm actually the volunteer founder for the She Leads Tech program globally, which we kicked off in earnest in 2016 with pilot programs, but the planning was being done sort of 6 months in advance of that. And so I'm just delighted with the work that many of our chapters around the world, which is now about 223 of them, are doing in this space. And certainly Vancouver chapter is one of the leading lights. They're about to receive an award in March of this year for their work in this space. And I think we need to start at the earliest possible level to earliest possible stage in a young girl or young woman's life to ensure that we do have equity across the board. As Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of the UN, said, and I am a great fan of his, I have to say, his quote is that we can no longer wait he could no longer wait for his granddaughters for gender equality to be a reality in the world. Now, for those of you who don't know how many years that would be, it's approximately 2 centuries, 200 years. I hope you're as shocked as I was when I heard him say that. Without any further ado, let me introduce to you now, I'm really delighted to be hosting this session. We have Diamond Essenger, who is the Commissioner of Girl Guides for British Columbia, which I think is a pretty amazing title in itself. And we have a wonderful spokesperson with us for Girl Guides, who is a guide herself, Sarah Tobin.
Thanks so much for having us.
Oh, a pleasure. And I have an admission, I was a brownie. Just saying straight up, I was an elf, and a right elf I was too. But it actually helped me form a lot of my independence, I think, as a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old child when I first started. So I am a great fan of Girl Guides, and I was so delighted to have discussions before I left Australia with Diamond to find out exactly what's going on in the world of guiding in BC. So without any further ado, one of the things I'd like you to tell us about in the first instance, Diamond, is about the Cyber Defenders program and how it came into being.
Sure, absolutely. Well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me here today. Has anyone here been a Girl Guide or is currently a Girl Guide in the case of Zoe, who's sitting right here? Terrific. Okay, so some people have context. Have you heard of Girl Guides? Okay, terrific. Probably through Zoe as well, which is terrific. So Digital Defenders is our new Girl Guide cybersecurity program. It was launched in late 2019 in partnership with BlackBerry, who I understand is also, I believe, a sponsor of this event today. I think I saw a logo out and about. We are working with them and with a lot of the female cybersecurity experts in their company. They helped us develop a whole suite of programming that we can offer for girls ages 5 to 17, age-appropriate, awesome activities for girls to explore. And of course, how you talk about cybersecurity with a 5-year-old is very different than how you might talk to a 15-year-old, but it includes age-appropriate activities for all ages. We think it's a really exciting opportunity to try to equip girls with some 21st century skills, to understand careers that now and the future may hold, and also understand the types of information that may be collected about them online and how to protect themselves from viruses, how to protect their computers and their information. These are all just really valuable life skills that, just like you know how to tie your shoes or cook a meal or pay a bill, you should also know how to protect your information. So we're really excited to be able to work with BlackBerry, with Girl Guide volunteers from all across Canada, with all of our wonderful members. In BC, we have about 18,000 Girl Guide members currently, to be able to share these opportunities with them in a non-formal way as well, not in a school setting, not in someone lecturing at the front of the room setting, but really hands-on, interactive, engaging, fun stuff. So yeah, that's
great.
The synopsis, I suppose.
Super. Now, Sarah, I've got a question for you. I know that you've been part of the Digital Defenders program. What made you want to participate in it?
Well, I think technology is highly integrated into everyone's life, and many people are very unaware of exactly like what goes into cybersecurity. Like for example, if you ask like a 7-year-old what cybersecurity is, they might not have like an idea, and the Digital Defenders program has integrated it into fun, hands-on activities that can really captivate different age groups and really give them perception about how they can protect their information.
That's interesting, that notion of captivating the age groups. So do you find yourself captivated?
Yeah.
And what captivates you?
What captivates me? Well, I, unlike many other teenagers, I'm not very tech savvy. I don't really know how it works. And I found the Digital Defenders program like almost described it to me in a way that I would understand, because sometimes I feel like, especially with technology, these big words are used and I don't know what that is. So I feel like it really put it into perspective for me.
Oh, that's great. I'm shocked that you're not tech savvy. Anyway, that's good. But why do you think other girls, particularly young girls, should become involved in the program?
Well, as I believe, like technology is such a large part of their lives, and it's going to be a bigger part as we progress into the future. And just them being aware of the jobs in cybersecurity, even maybe they never knew they had an interest in cybersecurity, and with these fun activities that are an easier introduction into it, they could potentially find like what they're interested in.
Okay, so you say fun activities, because we've got parents in the room here, and what we want to do is to try and get them to encourage their kids to become involved. What kind of fun activities? Because you and I both know that to encourage girls of say Zoe's age, there has to be fun involved, right? So we need to tell the parents what the fun is, so as they know it's harmless fun, but fun, right?
Yeah, for example, I went and helped, actually I have a little sister, she's in grade 7, so she's about 12, and I went to her unit, so their group, I went to one of their meetings and helped them with their Digital Defenders program. And for example, to demonstrate like a, what is it called, security wall, we put a little ping pong ball and they built a tower around the ball.
Oh, like a firewall, okay.
Their data, and then we built like an imaginary firewall, and they like got to throw a ball and see if it would like withstand like a virus, for example. And that's like an easy way of seeing like what it actually looks like.
That is a super way of putting it into perspective. We could do that with some adults, I think, too. There's something for the board awareness program.
We can come visit you and help you.
That's a really good idea, Diamond. That's sensational. So what benefit do you think you've actually gained from being a part of the program, Sarah?
Well, I just feel more confident now, being able to better understand what goes into like cybersecurity and how like my data could be like protected and stuff. And yeah, just a better understanding that if I knew that I wanted to go into that I would be supported through Girl Guides.
That's neat, isn't it? Okay. So one of the things that Diamond and I were talking about on the phone was that sometimes girls and young women find that there are barriers to them actually undertaking informal work, you know, if they want to do some work. Have you found that yourself? Do you do work outside of school, or, you know, a bit of part-time babysitting or something like that?
Well, actually,
selling cookies.
Well, like jobs in general.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have a part-time job. I coach gymnastics.
Oh, go girl! That's fantastic.
So I find it's pretty easy as a girl. I feel very empowered with the people who surround me and stuff.
And is that because of Girl Guides?
I feel like Girl Guides has given me the platform and the confidence to be able to go into the world knowing that I have the skills necessary to.
That's mighty.
Take on.
I'm just going to go to Diamond now. Diamond, we were talking about that business. So Sarah has found that Guides has given her the confidence to get part-time work and to be able to hold that role. But we were talking about that sometimes the gender divide starts very young. And if Guides can do anything to assist young girls and young women to get over that, I think it's amazing. So can you just tell us a little bit more about some of the stats that you're telling me about?
Yeah, so just a bit of backstory. Girl Guides is very interested in trying to understand the experiences of girls in Canada today. There is a bit of a lack of research sometimes about what girls themselves actually have to say about their lives and their futures and the opportunities that they see for themselves. So we've conducted a series of research. There was a report issued by Girl Guides called Girls on the Job, which analyzed the experiences of girls compared to boys in informal work, in more formalized work, for example, being a coach, informal work being defined as babysitting or helping rake a neighbor's yard or that type of function. And it was found that the gender wage gap or the gender pay gap actually starts extremely early. It was starting in some cases, many people think of it as an adult issue. I'm an adult professional, maybe I'm not getting paid the same as my male counterpart, I'm not having the same opportunities for advancement. We found that was starting as young as 12 or 13 when girls were entering informal work, based on a survey of about 1,000 teens in Canada to assess what wages they were actually receiving for sort of comparable types of work. So that was really a challenge that we were able to identify there by surveying girls. We also identified, of course, that girls disproportionately are facing issues like harassment in the workplace or unsafe working conditions or just a general feeling of discomfort and a lack of support. So those are the types of issues that we're trying to address as an organization these days. Of course, we try to equip girls, as Sarah alluded to, with confidence and skills and being ready to take on the world. And I think that we're a very well-rounded organization. Girls have so much exposure to so many things in Girl Guides compared to joining a sport, for example, or doing dance. And of course, many girls are very passionate about those. We're thrilled to have them explore. But in Girl Guides, they're constantly exposed to everything from cybersecurity to community service to leadership opportunities to maybe lockpicking with Zoe, I don't know. And so it's just such a great opportunity to be exposed to new topics, to new ideas, to new people as well. It's very rare that you find yourselves in an organization in a space where you're constantly encountering other types of people from very different walks of life. And so that's really exciting for us. And there are definitely challenges for girls today. But of course, girls' experiences have improved over time, but we know that stereotypes still remain.
I was actually going to just say that. The changing landscape of Girl Guides has been quite extraordinary. When I think about my time way back when, we had a badge for ironing and washing up, and to now know that there's a cyber badge, I think is just incredible. So Sarah, do you have the cyber badge yet?
Well, I don't have the program badge, but since I participated with my sister's group in helping run their cybersecurity, I got the little patch, or it's called a crest, for example. So yeah, I get to add that to my collection.
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool. So what do you want to do when you leave school? What do you want to study?
I really want to go get a degree in business. For a while I did consider a career in STEM. I wanted to be a pharmacist, and I felt as if I was properly equipped with my skills in Girl Guides because I was exposed to so many different things. But yeah, I definitely want to go to university, get a degree in business.
Well, there's still going to be STEM involved with that, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get away from it.
No, I feel like technology is so integrated into every part of everyone's life. So being equipped with skills such as cybersecurity at a young age is really setting girls up for success.
What would you say to someone as young as Zoe? I mean, she's already there, right? She's doing the whole lock-picking thing. But what would you say to somebody as young as her to bring them along this journey down the technology path? What would you say to them about the guiding experience and technology?
I would say just don't be afraid of new experiences, try everything, try learning hands-on, ask lots of questions, because there's lots of stuff that lots of people don't know, and the more questions you ask and the more curious you are about new things, the more you're going to learn, and you can just become a more well-rounded person.
It's a really good point. I mean, I've been a cyber geek for 20 years and there's still plenty of things I don't know. So, I ask questions too. And it's about not being afraid of asking people who are older than you, people who are more senior than you in an organisation, or indeed your peers. And sometimes it's actually harder to ask our peers, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why I feel as if Girl Guides is such a great spot to learn about new things, because I find, at least in my group, I'm very comfortable with all of my peers. So it's a very safe environment to be able to learn new skills and like ask questions where no one's going to judge you for not knowing what certain things are.
Wow, that's a big call. Non-judgmental environment. Can we all go to Girl Guides now? Diamond, I'm just going to ask you now about with the Digital Defenders program, are you seeing girls now actively making that decision towards technology or STEM type study and careers?
So the program was launched in late 2019.
I know, it's only
So in terms
new.
of the progression to post-secondary or future careers, only
It's
time
not
will tell.
longitudinal yet, yeah,
Only
yeah.
time will tell, but certainly we know that our members are super interested in exploring STEM. It's one of the biggest areas of interest in our program. I think because it is so hands-on and so engaging, STEM can be made really fun if our volunteers are willing to put the time in to make it really fun, whether it's making things explode or making some slime or any other number of experiments that you could possibly do. It's just a fun thing to explore. I know as a kid I went to a couple of CSI-themed camps with Girl Guides where we would have to solve some mysteries, often about stolen cookies. And so we would have to fingerprint and we would have to test different notes, ransom notes left behind and all that good stuff. So you can make it really, really fun. And so we see this as a great area for growth for our organization to keep expanding our STEM programming, to keep introducing new STEM content. And we're always looking as well for not just volunteers, though we're always looking for women who are willing to step up as volunteers. We're also looking for subject matter experts who are willing to share their time and their expertise with our organization. Learning doesn't just happen in a classroom, in a formalized setting. Girl Guides and similar organizations are also a great way to connect with youth, and so we love to be able to bring in role models and mentors who can share their personal and professional expertise, who can give a workshop for an hour about whatever it is that they do in their day job and make that really exciting, because girls are able to relate then a lot better to someone who has the personal experience in that area, but also as well for our role models that do come in who happen to identify as women, that positive role model sharing and connection, the ability to see a woman in a field and say, hey, I could consider a job like that because she is able to do it, that's really powerful.
That is an interesting point that we're seeing it again as girls and young women who are looking for role models, because that's one of the things that I hear around the world that women want when they've hit their career, when they're already in their career. We hear that the thing that they lack are role models, you know, people who've actually been there, done that. And so it's fabulous if we know that from a young age that young girls and women want that, we can do something about it. We can do something about putting programs in place for them, and Girl Guides is obviously doing that. Now, just about the volunteering, again, we have a captive audience of potential parents or potential subject matter experts in the room. If somebody was really keen to become involved, what do they need to do?
I mean, they can ask me here today, or they can head online. We have a website, girlguides.ca, where you can register online to be a volunteer. Certainly, if you're interested in becoming a subject matter expert and visiting a local group in your community, wherever you may live in BC, there are lots of opportunities to do that. And you can just shoot an email to BC Girl Guides. There's contact info on girlguides.ca, and we can connect you with groups in your area that might be interested. Because we also have a girl-driven program. We're very much focused on putting girls in the lead to make decisions about the type of programming that they explore. Some groups may be super keen on cybersecurity, and others might not be, and that's totally fine. We want to make sure that girls can have the ability to explore topics that interest them, to discover more about those topics, and really be put in the lead to be in the driver's seat and decide what kind of adventure they're going to have. So whether you're a cybersecurity expert or an artist or a teacher or a doctor or who knows what other career you may have, we're happy to have folks share that type of expertise and experience with us.
That's great. I love that notion of having adventures. I actually had somebody I was talking to recently saying that they thought the reason that they retained talent in their organisation was because they offered workplace adventures. So, Sarah, what kind of adventures have you had as part of guiding programs?
Well, I've had just like my regular meeting stuff. For example, working on the girl-driven program has really helped me because you kind of get to pick and choose your areas of interest. For example, when many people think of guiding, they think of camping and
I think of blue uniforms.
you know, the blue uniform, the little tent, the little backpack. as fun as that is, I love camping. Most people think it's all of the program, but if you really don't like camping, you can still join guides and like do unit stuff. Or for example, I went to Newfoundland this summer with Girl Guides, and I got to meet girls from all over the country.
Wow.
And we went camping, so that was a really cool experience, just getting to connect with other people who share interests with me. Was really cool. That was one of my favorite adventures I think I've been on with guiding.
So you say share interests with you. What kind of interests do you have?
What kind of interests? Well, I feel as if they had many similar interests. For example, like wanting to get involved in their community, or for example, the like girl-driven program. So
yeah, tell us about the
other
girl-driven.
girls, like empowering girls, kind of.
Right. That's a really nice idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what sort of things would you do to empower another girl?
So, for example, we were on this hike, back to the camping thing, but one of the girls was having a hard time going, we had this uphill part, just having a really hard time with it, and all the other girls in the group were just there, like, cheering her on, and then we got to the top of the hill, and it was like, everyone felt accomplished.
So do you think adults can learn something from that?
Yeah, of course. I feel as if we're always constantly learning, and that's why it's also important to just ask questions and stuff. But we're all learning, and you know, I feel as if it takes you down to like a vulnerable state, and then that's when we can build each other up the most.
Wow, that is an incredibly, I hate to say it, but that's an incredibly adult thing to say. I mean, I know adults who wouldn't say that. And I love that notion of it taking you to a vulnerable place, and then you have the power to help one another become empowered. Again, I think that's a notion that a lot of we adults in the room could really take on board.
But also I believe Girl Guides provides us with a state where we're comfortable to go down to that state where we don't know anything about what we're doing, and we're able to learn. So.
Wow. I want to be a Girl Guide again. I just want to ask another question about a friend of mine in Australia is involved in a program to try and encourage young women into STEM and STEM careers, and particularly cyber security. And one of the things that he's facing with that program is he thinks that parents are actually actively disencouraging, I don't know, it's not a word, really turning them off going into STEM careers, particularly as a result of the gender gap, gender pay gap, and indeed the gender leadership gap. It might be one for Diamond to start with, and then I'll come back to you, Sarah. Are you seeing any of that here in BC? Because it seems to me to be a worry if we have, as parents, are actually actively discouraging our kids. That was the word I was looking for. Discouraging our kids from, our young women from entering those careers.
Yeah, I think we know that stereotypes still remain. We know that even amongst teenagers who are we're pretty progressive, open-minded generation of people today, who are very interested in exploring all kinds of careers. We even know that for teenagers in Canada, between the ages of about 12 and 18, based on our research, that even about a quarter of girls and boys alike agree with statements like, feeling that, for example, boys are more capable than girls of exploring areas like STEM.
Like run like a girl as well, which is something I really hate.
And so
or throw like a girl.
We know that those stereotypes remain. We know that some adults, some parents still believe in those stereotypes, or in some cases maybe unconsciously reinforcing those stereotypes. I think the best advice I could give to parents is to broaden your daughter or your son or your child's horizons and just introduce them to a whole wide range of things, whether that's through a program like Girl Guides, extracurricular opportunities, things that they sign up for. Challenge their notions and their perceptions of what they think that they can do or what is something for them to do as a girl or as a boy or as anyone. And allow them to explore new interests, because much like Sarah has been saying before, like being able to discover what you're most interested in and be surrounded by a safe and supportive and empowering group of people is really powerful, and will hopefully in the future encourage more girls to explore areas like cybersecurity or STEM more generally and become more equitable and equal in the future in terms of the rates at which girls and boys are involved in these areas.
Great. Sarah, I guess to you on that, I know that Mum came with you today, so I gather she's pretty supportive of what you're doing with guiding, because you're a spokesperson, so you're in a slightly different role to a lot of girls. What made you, or what gave you the courage to become a spokesperson for Girl Guides?
Well, my mom actually signed me up when I was really little. My mom's very involved in the organization, so I've always felt very comfortable in Girl Guides, and I just felt as if it's not my duty, but more of my role, as if I feel as if, since I've had such a positive experience in Girl Guides, to share that with everyone and encourage everyone to join, because since it did so many great things for me, I thought that it could help others.
Right, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we ask that lot out there if they've got any questions now?
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, and it's a question for Diamond. Since the launch of Digital Defenders, and I know it was sort of late last year, what kind of feedback have you been receiving from parents?
I think the feedback has been very positive. One element that we haven't mentioned actually of the program is that in addition to the fun activities, the firewall building, I think there's a tag game about virus spreading, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's also some take-home materials for each age group that they can actually share with their parents when they get home to continue the learning, to offer some advice, some tips to parents on how to keep that interest going, especially if their girl has returned home and said, wow, I had such a cool time tonight, that was so amazing, I wish I could explore more, and the parent says, gee, I don't know how you can do that. They can look at that tip sheet and say, oh, these are some ways that I can encourage her curiosity, encourage her to explore further, encourage more adventures in cybersecurity or in STEM. And so that's something that we've been doing. I think the feedback has been generally very positive, and it's been great to broaden the horizons of our members, as well as connect with some unlikely partners, whether it's being at an event like BC Aware or connecting with subject matter experts across the province. That's not the usual suspects that would be hanging out together, some enthusiastic cookie-selling girl empowerment folks alongside some cybersecurity experts, but we've been really excited to bring that together, and I think parents have been receptive to that as well.
Great question, great answer.
And did you both start Girl Guides?
I joined when I was 5 as a spark. My mother signed me up, and now I'm here.
I also joined when I was 5. I was a spark, signed up eager in kindergarten, put on that pink shirt. So excited.
Yeah, I tried to find my Brownies photograph because we talked about it on the phone. I did try to, I found it, and then when Diane and I were talking about it, she said, well, you've got to bring it with you. And I went, yeah, sure. Well, of course, then I couldn't find it. So I think I was 6 when I joined, and the brown uniform, not so attractive, but it was a great experience.
I'm sure you look great.
And so you had a question.
Yes, for girls who aren't already involved in the guides, how can they get started in the cyber awareness program, or is there a procedure?
Yeah, so Digital Defenders is offered as part of our Girl Guide program now. So it's a core offering that we have for our membership. So generally, if girls would like to specifically access Digital Defenders, they can join Girl Guides to do so. There are, I'm sure, a number of other opportunities out there, though, in the community and the world to explore STEM, maybe less so on the cybersecurity front. But we're really excited to be able to offer this to our members. Certainly, though, all sorts of folks in this room are subject matter experts. They work at companies or organizations in the cybersecurity space, and there may be additional opportunities for youth to connect with that, whether that's older youth that are attending maybe a training day or learning about jobs that are available, or younger youth that maybe are touring a facility and asking questions in the Q&A. There are lots of cool ways to explore cybersecurity, and hopefully you find, or everyone is able to find for any children in their life a good option for them.
It was interesting, we had a question last night from a gentleman at the Executive Series program for CISOs about how young kids at school could become involved in some kind of a program, and Dragana certainly mentioned the Girl Guides BC Digital Defenders program. So I think there's a lot of people out there who would be really keen to know more about this program. So somehow we all have to get that word out, I think, about what a great opportunity. I'm learning a lot about Girl Guides today, and I think it's a sensational organisation. And just sitting and talking with you, Sarah, makes me realise just what an experience it can be, and what a career building opportunity it is for young women, because gaining that confidence in that safe environment has given you the ability to speak at an event like this, which I'm sure you may not have been able to do that had you not had that guiding experience. So I think Sarah is a fabulous example to us all, and I'm sorry to embarrass you, a fabulous example to us all of what guiding can mean, and how the program actually fits into, and how the organisation has moved into the 21st century without a hiccup. I think that's another amazing thing. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I don't remember my daughter's troop actually doing anything in the Digital Defenders or anything like that. How can the troop get more information on the program?
Yeah, so our groups and our guiders who are volunteers can access information. We have a Girls First program platform that they log into. It's a new digital solution that we rolled out about 18 months ago, I think now, as part of our Girl Driven program. And on there you can search by any and every keyword, from cybersecurity to mental health to healthy relationships, or any number of other topics. And on there is all of the Digital Defenders content. There's also some public-facing information on our Girl Guide website that you can just search online, Digital Defenders Girl Guides, send them a link. They may not have heard about it, they may have missed the announcement, or perhaps girls in the group have just expressed interest in other topics that have taken them in a different direction on their adventure. The program was just launched at the very end of 2019, so it's possible it's in their plans for 2020 to explore as well.
Anything else? Yes.
So I was just so throughout this program, we're helping teens to develop that passion, get into the industry, and But I'd say it's at the university level when that reality starts to hit you, because that gender disparity is very prominent there. You're probably just a couple of girls in a class or a batch of about 20 to 30 students. So I just say, how are you, looking at that in perspective? How are you helping them deal with that? Because all this journey is for them to actually make a career, right? So how that change, are you planning to have, any strategy in mind to help them cope with that change, so that by the point they reach there, they are not discouraged? Because it is actually, I'm from the same background, so I see. You're in a university or in careers, you're just always just a handful of girls dealing with that. So when you feel, you're just about a bunch of them in the whole class of guys, then you kind of feel, left out, and you're just by yourself. So that is the point we're trying to achieve, that, that mental barrier comes across. So you have any plans how to help them over during that transition, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main Digital Defenders programming is for girls who are 5 to 17, so basically kindergarten through grade 12. That's our core program offering. We're Girl Guides for girls. But the benefits of Girl Guides, and I was thinking about this actually earlier when Joe was talking, I think the benefits for Girl Guides in that safe environment and the empowerment and the learning and the exposure to new topics doesn't actually it doesn't actually stop when you're 17. It doesn't actually stop when you graduate. I'm a young adult that is currently leading in our organization as our provincial commissioner. I also work a full-time job, and I'm also in grad school, and I find that the lessons that I learned in Girl Guides, but still currently am learning today, benefit me greatly in all of the things that I do in my life. I certainly find myself exposed to new topics, to new interests, whether it's information about cybersecurity. Frankly, I am not a cybersecurity expert. Let's not confuse ourselves. I am delighted to be here and to be able to talk about this, but I'm certainly not a specialist in this area, and it's been really exciting through Digital Defenders, even for me as an adult, to be exposed to that topic and to learn more about it. And we joke about that fireball and the ping pong ball. If I did that activity, I would probably learn some things from it as well. And there's a lot of power as well to learning as an adult through teaching, through mentorship. Being able to explain a concept to youth that you're volunteering with actually really gives you a lot of confidence and a lot of skills. So I would hope we have a lot of young adult volunteers, a lot of university students at UBC and SFU and all sorts of places around here, Langara College, many of those young women go to local post-secondary institutions. So I would hope that the confidence, the skills, and the knowledge that they're gaining in our organization are also benefiting them, whether they're studying cybersecurity or any other program. Thank you.
Great answer. I'm going to ask Sarah, before I wrap up, I'm just going to ask you for one last comment. If you had anything you could tell this audience today about your experience and the program, what would it be?
Well, when I was first introduced to the cybersecurity program, I was a little scared. I barely know how to use my iPhone. And those are literally made to understand so clearly. So I found it quite daunting. But when you break it down to concepts, and I was explaining it to the girls, as Diamond said, like learning through teaching almost, I could finally grasp the concepts. And I even learned new things. I didn't even know what a firewall was. So I find I'm always learning new things, and just by introducing new topics such as cybersecurity, even I was able to learn something new.
Fantastic. And Diamond, for you, what would be, if there was one thing you want to get across to this audience today, what would that one message be?
Do I have to pick just one? Can I pick 3?
You can have 3. You can have 3 short ones.
I would say, first and foremost, certainly for the parents and folks in the room that have youth in their lives, really introduce them to a wide range of topics. Get them connected to things like cybersecurity. Start at a young age. 5 is when we're starting our Digital Defenders programming in kindergarten, and of course that learning will progress as they get older. They may reintroduce these topics as well when they're 10, when they're 15, but they'll be set up for success by having been exposed to this at the earliest possible age, because they'll grasp those concepts. They'll be able to explore them in greater depth, and maybe be a girl that is sharing that experience with other girls, like Sarah did by going to a younger group and being able to facilitate activities with them. So that's really powerful, I think, for us. Second of all, I mean, certainly we would love to have volunteer support for our organization. In September of this year, we have so much demand for our organization in certain communities that we started the year. Luckily, we've diminished it slightly since then, but we started with a 1,000 girl wait list in British Columbia to join Girl Guides, our 18,000 member organization. We are trying to grow, we are growing, and girls are going online to sign up, but depending on their preferences, maybe they live in a neighborhood that's really in demand or an age group that's really in demand, they're stuck waiting, and those could be our future cybersecurity leaders, our STEM explorers that so desperately want to be able to have that fun with their friends, but aren't able to, and they're just waiting on a wait list. So we'd love to have some more volunteers. And third of all, of course, subject matter expertise, whether that's with Girl Guides or any other organization that you're passionate about. Share your cybersecurity knowledge, whether that's as a subject matter expert helping them with the administration of their organization, or whether that's a cybersecurity expert who is mentoring others to understand those concepts, like through Girl Guides. It's a really powerful way that not only benefits our communities and the people around you, but also benefits you yourself. It's great professional development to be a volunteer advisor or a volunteer with an organization. I certainly put Girl Guides on all of my CVs, LinkedIn, all over the place, and I find it's a real value add. So certainly find a cause or an organization that you're passionate about, and find ways to share your cybersecurity skills or any other passions that you have.
Thank you, Diamond. Now I'm just going to wrap that up. And what that sounded like to me is that any of you in the room who need CPEs, this is the way to get them, right? Continuing professional education hours for your certifications. Now I have 4 of those rotten certifications, so I have to do a lot every year. So if you're in the same boat as me and you live in BC, get hold of Diamond and have a chat with her. I loved Sarah's notion of learning through teaching. You know, there are often jokes made about that. We teach what we need to learn, but in a way it's kind of true, but in a really positive way. You learn a bit yourself and you pass that knowledge on. Now that's an age-old way of teaching and learning, actually. It's what a lot of our Indigenous peoples across the world do. And so I think that cultural value is really important, and what we're talking about here is some really fundamental cultural values that are instilled in the girls and the young women of Guides. I love the idea that they go home with tips for parents, because you know, I think parents are in an unenviable position today, oftentimes behind the 8 ball as to where their kids are and where their kids are heading. So tips for parents, go Guides, that's fabulous. The other thing that struck me was the notion of girls empowering other girls. That's a really, to me, that's a really powerful notion. I wish that had have been the thing when I was Sarah's age. I mean, that to me is, you know, helping somebody else up alongside you. It's like that meme about straightening the other woman's crown without letting the world know that it was crooked in the first place. So to me, that's a really powerful statement. What's happening, I believe, is that the dominant paradigm is being challenged in the work that guides are doing, because they are captivating the age groups, across the age groups, from within and from without. And putting technology, for instance, into perspective for someone like Sarah, who perhaps really wasn't really her thing. You know, gymnastics was clearly her thing. So it also helps then raise job awareness, what the possibilities are for you through fun activities, you know. And I think that giving confidence, because that's another thing I hear from women across the world, is that they don't necessarily have the confidence to make the next move. These are young women who do have the confidence to make the next move, and I think that's brilliant. The alarming thing I heard was that the gender pay gap starts early, as young as 12. Now clearly that's something we have to do something about, because that comes back to gender parity as well. And I loved the notion of you need to try everything and ask lots of questions. And what do we as adults tend not to do? We're embarrassed to ask questions. We're frightened that we're going to ask a stupid question. Well, reality is there is no stupid question, because you actually need to know the answer. So I think the whole notion of putting girls in the lead as well, to drive towards decision making, is again something as adults we could learn from. So I think volunteering for guides would be sensational, because you're going to be exposed to some of this ethos. So they're kind of the things. I'm just trying to read my own writing here, it's appalling. But I do think that understanding that teaching through learning and challenging the dominant paradigm, to have an environment of constant learning, can only encourage and can only make these young women enablers. And if they choose cybersecurity, we are the luckiest people in the world. Thank you, Diamond. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. I think it's lunchtime now.